the kid along.
It's a shame that whenever people talk about gangster movies from 1979, they only bring up the Warriors and forget the Wanderers. But honestly, the Ducky Boys and the Wanderers are the scariest street gang ever to step onto the screen. But 47 years later, the most haunting thing is not just in those streets. It is in the cast itself. One person walked out of this movie and became Marion Ravenwood in Indiana Jones. One became the unforgettable face of Porky's then, years later, was gone way too suddenly. And the guy who looked the scariest in the movie turned out to be an MIT engineer, an opera singer, and an Olympic-level wrestler. Do not just look back at this cast to see how they aged. Look closer, because behind the Wanderers are lives you cannot squeeze into one line of credits, and the first name already sounded like a Hollywood script from the very start: Ken Wahl. Number 1, Ken Wahl as Richie Gennaro. Before we talk about the people who disappeared, won Oscars, or left too soon, we have to start with the guy standing right in the middle of the storm, Ken Wahl. In The Wanderers, he plays Richie Gennaro, the handsome, impulsive leader of the group. Richie has the kind of stance young men can easily admire: jacket over his shoulder, friends behind him, a beautiful girl in front of him. But the funny thing is, the man playing that leader did not walk into the movie like some star who had been prepared for it.
And they did a little 2-3 minute video screen test with us, and a couple days later I got the call.
Ken Wahl had almost no acting experience. He himself once said The Wanderers was his first acting job. He had not even done school theater. Wahl went to the audition thinking he might just be an extra or maybe a tiny role passing through the frame. He went to an open audition at the ASCAP building on Broadway, did a short screen test of about 2 to 3 minutes, and a few days later got the phone call that changed his life. After The Wanderers, Wahl did not disappear. He climbed fast. He acted with Paul Newman in Fort Apache. The Bronx appeared in Jinxed, then Purple Hearts, but the real breakthrough was Wise Guy, where he played Vinnie Terranova. That was when Wahl proved he was not just the lucky face of a cult movie. He won a Golden Globe in 1990 and got an Emmy nomination in 1989. By the late 80s, Ken Wahl had everything Hollywood liked: in a leading man, a strong face masculinity, a cool edge, and just enough sense of danger. Then everything snapped. Not because of a scandal. Not because the audience turned its back on him. Not because his time had passed. In 1992, Wahl fell down a marble staircase, broke his neck, and injured his spine. He was not paralyzed, but his old life pretty much ended there. Chronic pain pulled him away from acting, and behind the lights came an even darker period: years of depression. The most painful part was not just in his neck or spine. Wahl once said he felt useless. For a man who had once been the financial and emotional support of his family, that feeling can be crueler than any bad article. It is the quiet question every morning: if I am no longer the person others lean on, then who am I? Ken Wahl did not have some flashy Hollywood comeback, but he found another purpose. Later on, he and his wife Shane Barbie became involved in animal rescue and cared about connecting rescued animals with veterans dealing with PTSD, depression, or traumatic brain injuries, a wounded man trying to stand beside others who were also learning how to keep living. When The Wanderers came out, Ken Wahl was only 22 years old. This year, he is 69. And to me, he is not just Richie Gennaro, he is the biggest what if in this cast. If that fall had not entered his life in 1992, how far would Hollywood have seen Ken Wahl go? Number 2, John Friedrich as Joey Capra. Some actors disappear after Hollywood no longer needs them. John Friedrich was different. He disappeared right when Hollywood still had reason to look back. When The Wanderers came out, John Friedrich was only 21 years old. This year, he is 68. In The Wanderers, Friedrich plays Joey Capra, Richie's best friend, and one of the most important members of the group. Joey does not seem in control of everything the way Richie does. He is more tense, more sensitive, more easily scratched up by life. And the strange thing is, Friedrich looks like a real Bronx kid on screen, but in real life, before this movie, he had never even set foot in New York. He came from San Fernando Valley, California. The early days of shooting The Wanderers were not comfortable at all. Friedrich once said he was afraid he would be fired, and there were times he cried in the bathtub because of the pressure. That does not sound like the image of a tough street kid, but that fear is exactly what made Joey feel more real. Young men sometimes have to walk outside with a hard face even while they are shaking inside. Joey has that feeling. Friedrich was not the kind of actor who had one role and then was done. Before The Wanderers, he had appeared in The Boy in the Plastic Bubble and Thank God It's Friday. After that, he went on to have a small circle of friends, fast-walking The Final Terror and especially The Thornbirds, one of the major television events of the early 80s. From the outside, the road was still open. A young face, real acting nerves, big projects, and every reason to keep going. But after 1983, he pretty much shut the door on Hollywood, not the kind of leaving where he still hung around the business taking a few small roles just to keep his name in the credits. Friedrich moved to New Mexico, got married, started a family, and became a financial consultant. A life so normal that it almost feels shocking if you only know him as Joey Capra. When asked what happened, Friedrich did not give some long speech. He just said, "Life happened." He also once said acting was attractive because it gave you a mask. But the more a person grows up, the harder it gets to live behind a mask. The strange thing is that this disappearance seems to have started very early. Tony Ganios once said he lost touch with Friedrich almost right after The Wanderers wrapped, while Ganios, Ken Wahl, and Jim Youngs remained very close. John Friedrich left Hollywood when he could still have come back. But the next person did not have that luxury. Tony Ganios was once the giant of The Wanderers, and his story ended in a way that was too fast, too painful. Number 3, Tony Ganios as Perry LaGuardia. You remember Perry LaGuardia, right? He was the giant from New Jersey who showed up to protect Joey from the Baldies. What fits Perry in a strangely perfect way is that Ganios did not come into Hollywood through some fancy acting class. He was discovered at Sheridan Square Gym in New York, a young guy with an overwhelming body and a powerful presence, exactly the kind of person a casting director sees once and immediately understands this guy cannot stay outside the frame forever. But that also became his trap. Hollywood saw Tony Ganios' body before it was willing to see the person.
Remain popular over this amount of time, nobody could have predicted that. We figured it would be, just something would be forgotten about.
After The Wanderers, Ganios did not disappear. He had Backroads' Continental Divide, then became more famous as Anthony Meat Tuparello in Porky's. For male audiences who grew up with 80s movies, Porky's is a name that does not need much explanation. After that, he also appeared in Porky's, Two Porky's, Revenge, Die Hard 2, The Taking of Beverly Hills, Rising Sun, and on TV with Wise Guy, The Equalizer, Scarecrow, and Mrs. King. That career was not empty, but it had a very clear problem most of Hollywood still called him when they needed a big man to walk into a scene and make everything feel heavier. Porky's made audiences remember him, but it also stuck him with a label that was hard to peel off. Ganios once basically said that the success of Porky's did not make the industry respect the actors in the movie anymore. At times he thought about coming back, including a next-generation kind of Porky's project, but no big comeback ever really happened. The interesting thing is Philip Kaufman never forgot Perry. In Rising Sun, Ganios had a small role, like a nod to anyone who still remembered The Wanderers. Then in 2024, tragedy hit. According to his fiancée, Amanda Serrano Ganios, he had a spinal infection, had not been feeling well, but hid it for a few days. By the time he got to the hospital, the situation was serious. After surgery the next morning, his heart stopped. The last words they said to each other were, "I love you." Ken Wahl also said goodbye to him with words that were very short and very painful. "Rest in peace, buddy. I love you." When The Wanderers came out, Tony Ganios was only 20 years old. It is heartbreaking that when Tony Ganios passed away, he was only 64, and he still looked like he used to, just a little older than the young man we knew back then. Number 4, Karen Allen as Nina Becker. In The Wanderers, Karen Allen is the girl who makes Richie lose his cool. In real life, she is the one who walked out of this movie and straight into one of the biggest adventures in Hollywood history. When The Wanderers came out, Karen Allen was only 28 years old. This year she is 75. She played Nina Becker, not a member of The Wanderers, and she did not need a jacket or a gang to create magnetism. But The Wanderers was only one part of her very hot early run. Before that, Karen Allen had appeared in National Lampoon's Animal House in 1978. In 1979, she had The Wanderers and Manhattan. Then came Cruising in 1980. She was not some random face passing through a cult movie. She was moving fast, and Hollywood was starting to pay attention. In 1981, everything changed when she became Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Nina made Richie turn his head, but Marion made the whole theater turn its head. She was not the weak girl waiting for Indiana Jones to save her. Marion drank, argued back-punched straight into her own past, and stood beside Harrison Ford with a fire that was completely her own. That role put Karen Allen into popular memory in a way very few actors ever get. After that, she continued with Starman Scrooge, The Sandlot, The Perfect Storm, and In the Bedroom. But the best part is that Karen Allen did not let Hollywood swallow her life whole. When the industry started getting awkward about mature women, she built another life in Massachusetts with Karen Allen Fiber Arts, Textile Design Theater, independent film, and her own community. She returned as Marion in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008, then once again in Dial of Destiny in 2023. After that, she still directed, still acted, and still earned an Independent Spirit nomination for Colwell. She is not the story of someone Hollywood forgot. She is someone Hollywood called by name, and then she was still stubborn enough to write the rest of her life her own way. Number 5, Toni Kalem as Despi Galasso. A lot of people first remember Toni Kalem as Despi Ritchie's girlfriend. But the story of her career is not about standing next to a man. It is about spending years trying to escape that exact box. When The Wanderers came out, Toni Kalem was only 23 years old. This year, she is 70. In The Wanderers, Despi Galasso is Chubby Galasso's daughter, the girl tied to family, the neighborhood marriage, and all those old obligations around Ritchie. The role helped people remember Kalem, but it also placed her into the kind of image Hollywood loves to use over and over, the sharp, hot-tempered Italian-American girl living in a world of men. After the movie, she kept working steadily, appearing in Private Benjamin Silent Rage Reckless Sister Act, along with TV shows like MacGyver, The Equalizer, and Picket Fences. The problem was not that Toni Kalem had no work. The problem was that the work kept pulling her back into a familiar box. The real turning point came when she held on to A Slipping Down Life, the Ann Tyler novel. Kalem optioned the work in 1984 at first because she wanted to play Evie, a role that could pull her away from the feisty Italian-American type she had been attached to after The Wanderers and Private Benjamin. But that project did not move fast. It dragged on for nearly 2 decades. She had to keep renewing the adaptation rights, use her own money to hold on to it, and at times fight off producers with more money who wanted to take the project out of her hands. In the end, Kalem did not just act. She wrote and directed A Slipping Down Life with Lily Taylor and Guy Pearce. The movie did not turn her into a big commercial director, but it proved something more important. She was no longer just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. Then The Sopranos brought her back into the memory zone of middle-aged male viewers. David Chase remembered her from The Wanderers. Kalem auditioned for the series, was once considered for Carmela, but finally became Angie Bonpensiero. And she did not just act. In 2004, she wrote the season 5 episode All Happy Families. She does not give us some big scandal to chew over again. She gives us a tougher career record in Hollywood sometimes. A woman has to hold the pen herself if she wants to survive. Number 6, Jim Youngs as Buddy Borsellino. Buddy Borsellino is not the most famous face in The Wanderers, but Jim Youngs has a very American Life bar's cult movies, footloose golf courses, caddying, and a long fight with himself. When The Wanderers came out, Jim Youngs was only 23 years old. This year, he is 70. In The Wanderers, Youngs plays Buddy, one of the members of the group. He also left a small fingerprint on the movie when the song Stranger Girl was credited as being written by him. But before he had the Wanderers jacket, Youngs was not some Hollywood face with a path already laid out for him. He lived on Long Island, worked as a bartender, and ran the nightclub My Father's Place. His sister Gail told him about an open casting call in New York. At first he read for Ritchie, but Philip Kaufman felt Ken Wahl fit the lead role better, and Youngs got Buddy. After The Wanderers, Youngs had a very unfortunate turn. He once turned down the first Porky's, then chose the series Secrets of Midland Heights. That series stopped after 14 episodes. Looking back, this was a big what-if in his career because Porky's became one of those movies that male audiences from the 80s remembered for a very long time. But Youngs did not disappear right away. He had The Final Terror, Footloose, Youngblood, Wise Guy, Babylon 5, and NYPD Blue. For many people, his most recognizable role outside The Wanderers is Chuck Cranston in Footloose, Ariel's boyfriend, the guy audiences see once and immediately want to punch. Youngs once said he did many of his own dangerous scenes, including the tractor scene with Brake Trouble and the fight with Laurie Singer that hurt his back when he tried to protect his co-star. Around 1997, he left acting. After that, he returned to golf, the first love of his life. Youngs had once wanted to become a professional golfer, then later worked as a caddy at a country club in Los Angeles. He called it the lowest spot on the ladder, but he did it well and helped a lot of people. The heaviest thing is that he once admitted he'd struggled with alcohol for 50 years. He said Footloose and Youngblood were made when he was sober, and he wanted anyone fighting alcohol not to give up. He is not the loudest story in the cast, but he may be one of the most real. A few big chances, a few choices at the wrong time, a career he once loved and then left from exhaustion and a private battle he was brave enough to name. Number 7. Alan Rosenberg as Turkey. In the movie, Rosenberg plays Turkey, a member of the Wanderers who becomes obsessed with the Baldies. Unlike many of the young faces in the cast, Rosenberg came into the profession with a more serious acting background. He studied at Yale School of Drama, then after The Wanderers built a very steady television career. He did not become the kind of star whose poster hung on bedroom walls, but he became the face audiences kept seeing for decades. Civil War's L.A. Law, Sybil, Chicago, Hope the Guardian, ER, and later Shameless Bosch, Suits Mo, and Bosch Legacy. One small detail for hardcore fans, he also voiced Boba Fett in the radio version of The Empire Strikes Back. His personal life also drew public attention for a while. Rosenberg married Marg Helgenberger from CSI, and the two separated after 19 years of marriage before divorcing. But the biggest turning point for him was not in marriage or in a role. It was in the union. In 2005, Alan Rosenberg was elected the 24th president of the Screen Actors Guild. He stepped into that position right when Hollywood was arguing fiercely over DVD revenues, cable new media contracts with studios, and the tense relationship with AFTRA. By the period from 2008 to 2009, SAG was cracking around negotiations and the possibility of a strike. More than 130 stars opposed the strike authorization vote, while Rosenberg said that vote was a tool to increase bargaining pressure, not an automatic strike. After that, he and his allies also failed in a legal effort to stop the new negotiating team from continuing talks. When The Wanderers came out, Alan Rosenberg was 29 years old. This year, he is 76. To me, his turn is strange from Turkey, the kid pulled between two gangs, to the man standing in the middle of Hollywood's real battles, where loyalty is no longer measured by the color of a jacket, but by contracts, votes, and actors' rights. Number 8. Linda Manz as Pee-wee. Alan Rosenberg walked out of The Wanderers and into Hollywood's power struggles. Linda Manz went the other way. She did not need power, did not need a long career, did not need Hollywood to call her name every year. She only needed a few roles, then left behind a mark that many actors never get after a whole lifetime of work. When The Wanderers came out, Linda Manz was only 18 years old. In The Wanderers, Manz plays Pee-wee Terror's tiny girlfriend. It is not a big role, but nobody could mistake her for anyone else. What is special is that Pee-wee was created specifically for Manz after she made an impression at the audition. Before that, she had just finished shooting Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, but the movie had not yet made her a public name. For Kaufman, just looking at Manz was enough to understand this girl had to be in the movie. After The Wanderers, she had the biggest role of her life in Dennis Hopper's Out of the Blue. Sibe is a rebellious, wounded young girl obsessed with Elvis, looking at the adult world like a pile of wreckage. It is the kind of role that is not meant for a polished star. It needs someone with real scratches, and Manz had that. Then she almost disappeared. Not because of a big scandal, not because of some public collapse. She once said she got swept away among too many new young faces. Around age 20, she stepped back from the business, started a family, raised children, and lived quietly in California. Later on, Harmony Korine brought her back in Gummo. Then she had a small role in David Fincher's The Game. But Linda Manz never became a Hollywood person again. She died in 2020 at 58 after lung cancer and pneumonia. Number 9. Erland van Lidth de Jeude as Terror. If you only look at Terror in The Wanderers, you would think Erland van Lidth de Jeude was born to scare people. The truth is, he was an MIT engineer, a national-level wrestler, an opera singer, a tech guy, and one of the strangest lives in the whole cast. In the movie, Erland plays Terror, the leader of the Fordham Baldies. When The Wanderers came out, Erland van Lidth de Jeude was only 26 years old. He was born in the Netherlands in 1953, came to America with his family when he was still a child, and later studied at MIT. He graduated in 1977 with a degree in computer science and electrical engineering. And if that was not strange enough, he was also an outstanding heavyweight wrestler at MIT, a two-time All-American in NCAA Division III, ranked 6th in 1975, and 2nd in 1970-75, and 2nd in 1976. He was once the heavyweight alternate for the U.S. team at the Montreal Olympics in 1976 and was also aiming for the Moscow Olympics in 1980 before the U.S. boycotted those games. Hollywood found him not in an acting class, but at the New York Athletic Club. And just like that, an engineer, wrestler, and tech guy suddenly became Terror in The Wanderers. AFI also credits this as his film debut. After that, Erland did not make many movies, but everyone left a mark. He was Grossberger in Stir Crazy with Richard Pryor, and Gene Wilder then appeared in Alone in the Dark before becoming Dynamo in The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Dynamo was almost too perfect a role for Erland, a stalker who sings opera and uses electricity as a weapon. But the great thing is that the opera part was not some Hollywood gimmick. In real life, Erland really pursued singing, was connected with a motto opera in New York, and studied to become a Helden baritone. At the same time, he still worked in information technology taught at Manhattan Community College and even started his own IT company. He died in 1987 from heart failure only a few months after finishing The Running Man. He was only 34. To me, Terror is the scary role, but Erland in real life is even more memorable, a man with too many lives inside one lifetime who left before audiences had the chance to fully understand just how special he was. Number 10. Michael Wright as Clinton Stitch. Some actors are remembered because one role is so good that it starts swallowing the person behind it. For Michael Wright, that name is Eddie King Jr. But before he became the haunting face of the Five Heartbeats, Wright appeared in The Wanderers as Clinton Stitch, the leader of the Dell Bombers. It is not a long role, but it has its own tension. Clinton enters the movie with cold eyes, needing very little explanation, as if behind the character there is always a rage waiting to be let loose. The important thing is that Michael Wright was not just a tough-looking face Hollywood happened to pick up. He really studied the craft. When he was young, Wright was not sure where he wanted to go. Poetry, dance, performance, all kinds of things were pulling at him. Then a connection from his mother, who had a vintage shop called Jezebel, brought him to the Lee Strasberg Institute. At first, he did work study mopping floors and answering phones in exchange for classes. After that, he received a full scholarship. In other words, behind that intense look was someone who had paid the price to learn how to use it. After The Wanderers, Wright proved what he could do in Robert Altman's Streamers. In 1983, the male cast of the movie shared the Volpe Cup for Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival. But his defining role came later with Eddie King Jr. in The Five Heartbeats. According to Wright, the role had originally been written by Robert Townsend with Denzel Washington in mind, but after Townsend saw him act, everything changed direction, and Eddie became the biggest shadow in Michael Wright's career. A talented, proud, addicted, self-destructive singer who made audiences feel sorry for him and angry at him at the same time. For many people who love 90s movies, Eddie is no longer just a character. He is a wound that can sing. After that, Wright kept moving into dark territory in Sugar Hill Oz, and many years later still appeared in series like Black Lightning. Many of his roles carried the color of alcohol, drugs, violence, and a soul in free fall. So when he was arrested in real life for DWI in 2012 after his 1978 Rolls-Royce hit a car with 2 police officers inside that story, made Eddie's shadow even harder to separate from his name. To be fair, one arrest is not a whole person's life, but it is a public scratch. When The Wanderers came out, Michael Wright was only 23 years old. This year, he is 70. In this cast, he is a reminder that some actors get trapped inside the very roles that made them unforgettable and do not leave. Yet let us close today's list with the final name. Number 11, Dolph Sweet as Chubby Galasso. Dolph Sweet was not one of the rebellious young guys in The Wanderers. He was the adult. And I think this list should close with him because Dolph Sweet's real life was heavier than any small neighborhood boss role. In the movie Sweet plays chubby Galasso Despi's father, and the powerful man who makes Richie's world no longer just about a bunch of boys in jackets fighting in the street. Chubby represents the adult side of the neighborhood family money pressure marriage, and the rules those kids think they can keep dodging forever but eventually have to face. But remembering Dolph Sweet only as Chubby is not enough. Before becoming an actor, he had already lived a life many people only see in war movies. Sweet had been a World War II prisoner of war. The LA Times wrote that he became interested in acting when fellow prisoners put on a short play with him in the prison camp. Think about that some people find the stage in a classroom while Dolph Sweet found it in a wartime prison camp. After the war, he did not rush straight into Hollywood. He taught English and drama at Barnard College, then after 12 years became the head of the drama department. After that, he truly stepped onto the stage, appearing on Broadway in Rhinoceros, Streamer's The Sign, and Sidney Brustein's Window, and many other plays. Film and television later used him the way Hollywood often uses men with hard faces, cops, bosses, fathers, men with authority. He appeared in many movies like Heaven Can Wait, Go Tell the Spartans, The New Centurions, then The Wanderers. But for American television audiences, his defining role was Carl Kaniski in Gimme a Break starting in 1981. The tragedy is that he was still tied to that series when cancer took him. Dolph Sweet died in 1985 at Tarzana Hospital at age 64. At that point, Gimme a Break had already been renewed for season 5, and people still did not know how they would handle his character. When The Wanderers came out, Dolph Sweet was 59 years old. He died in 1985 at 64. Closing with him feels right because Sweet reminds us that behind this movie about youth were also men who had truly lived through history. And that is the cast of The Wanderers 47 years later. Some people walked into a bigger Hollywood. Some walked away almost without looking back. Some were betrayed by their bodies, some were boxed in by the industry. Some picked up the pen themselves so nobody else could write their lives for them, and some are no longer here. To me, The Wanderers has always felt like a time capsule. It holds on to the noise of an old New York, the jackets, the groups of friends who seemed like they would never break apart, and that feeling of youth, thinking it could beat the whole world. But when you look back at the actors after all these years, the movie becomes sweeter and also more bitter. It feels like opening an old box of photos in the garage. At first you smile because you recognize the familiar faces. Then you go quiet for a moment. Which story surprised you the most? Where did you first watch The Wanderers? Share it in the comments and subscribe to Weird Movie Secrets if you like time trips like this.
But there is something interesting about the shows that live the longest in our memories. The more familiar they feel, the easier it is to think we already know everything about them. But behind it, there is an entire layer of backstage stories that many viewers have never heard. So today, we are heading back to Hazard County and uncovering the most fascinating secrets behind the Dukes of Hazzard. And trust me, a few of them may make you see this series in a completely different way.